In this video, we're talking about how Sony's going to push immersion with the PS6. After that, a developer is speaking out and saying that their game wouldn't exist without PlayStation Studios. And finally, PlayStation is messing around with AI in an extremely creepy way. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. I hope you're having a great week. I am so excited for this weekend because it's going to be warm. Saturday, it's supposed to rain, but I'll take the warm weather even if it's raining. I just hope you're having a great weekend wherever you're at. So like I mentioned, the first news story is coming directly from Sony. They've been putting out patents and one just went through for a brand new DualSense and it sounds honestly pretty cool. We've talked about a lot of different patents that Sony has put through here on the channel and some of them are weird, like the ball-shaped controller that's like a touch screen where you can move the buttons around and make technically your own custom controller. And then there are ones that seem more practical and are actually like something Sony would do. And that's what this is. I think we will see this feature in the next PlayStation, and it's heating and cooling for the DualSense controller. So essentially what they want to do is put motors inside the controller that will heat up or cool down based on what's happening in the game. That would come in so clutch in a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, where the map is like a facsimile of the entire United States, really. You've got all the different biomes of all the different national parks. So when you go down towards New Austin, you could feel your controller actually heating up. Or if you get up into the mountains where you can find the white Arabian horse, I forget what area of the map that is, the Grizzlies, I want to say. When you go up there, the controller would cool down and maybe the haptic feedback would start shaking to emulate Arthur shivering. I could see it being awesome in that. Also, if you're playing Gran Turismo 7 or 8 by that time, because we'll be on PlayStation 6, when you're hitting corners really hard, going 158 miles an hour, your brake rotors are heating up, that's when the controller could heat up to really increase that immersion that you're feeling in those games. Like the practical uses of heating and cooling within the controller are totally limitless. I've actually had a cooling controller before back in the day on the GameCube when, there were so many brands like Nyko and Mad Catz making third-party controllers that looked amazing. So you'd get your mom to buy them for you, you'd bring it home. And even though it looked amazing in the bubble wrap packaging, once you actually took it out, it was like the cheapest controller you ever had. I had one of those for the GameCube. It was a wireless controller. It was see-through. It, I think, had LEDs in it, but the cool little gimmick that it had was that the handles that you would put your hands on had fans in them and you could change the speed. So when I was playing Resident Evil 4 and I was getting all sweaty because it was so hard for me to play that game in middle school, I would turn on the fans in the controller and I'd be like, yeah, I'm cool, calm, collected, and locked in right now. But the tech in this controller seems a lot better than what I had in my Nyko controller. It's really interesting. They don't want it to just be with the controller. They want it to be a special standalone motor that can be sold separately while also being built into the controller itself. I've seen a lot of these patents and I talk about them a lot on the channel because Sony, when they patent something, they usually put it into production relatively quickly and it actually comes to fruition. This is the first one I've seen in a long time that actually feels like not only it could happen, but would actually be pretty cool to see going into the future because they've done really cool stuff since the DualShock 4 with their controllers. I mean, they started way back with the DualShock 3, where they had 6-axis, to counter the Wii, where you could tilt the controller. They had games that let you fly around, tilting the controller. Then with the DualShock 4, they introduced the touchpad. Then with the PlayStation Vita, it had a back touchpad and a touch screen. DualSense, you get the touchpad from the DualShock 4, but you get the haptic feedback and adaptive triggers. They've realized that that's what, is a big selling point to set their console apart. It's small on paper, but in practice, I mean, as someone who has an Xbox Series X and a PlayStation 5, the PlayStation 5, even though functionally they're both just little PCs in a box, they're kind of identical, the PlayStation 5 feels like a next-gen machine, basically because of those features with the DualSense. And since I'm talking about the DualSense, I'll throw in a little PSA here. So for a long time now, with games like God of War, Spider-Man, any Sony-made game or game that had DualSense features on PC, if you connected over Bluetooth, you couldn't actually take advantage of those controllers, but I booted up Death Stranding Director's Cut last night and I was like, I don't want to break out the 9-foot USB cable. My controller is charged up just fine. I want to play wirelessly. So I connected to my laptop with Bluetooth and I noticed immediately in Death Stranding that the adaptive triggers worked over Bluetooth. So I don't know why Sony didn't announce this, and I don't know if it's just a Death Stranding thing or if it'll work in other games that support haptic feedback and adaptive triggers, features, but it's nice to see those wireless features coming over to PC as well, because whether we like it or not as console gamers, Microsoft is going into the future as a PC manufacturer that has an Xbox operating system, and Sony needs to pay attention to that space, not go full force on actually getting their stuff on it, but just be aware of it and support the users who are on it already playing the games they've already released. Like, it's not good for them to alienate this audience that they've already built just because people like when they support console more. And it just makes me a more dedicated PlayStation fan. Like, I get the PlayStation experience whether I'm on my PC or my PS5 or my PS5 Pro. It's like a big engagement factory for Sony, I guess. I don't know, like I'm playing Sony games on my PC, but I'm using a DualSense. So like effectively it is a high-powered PlayStation. That's something to think about. But that brings me to the second news story here, which is a developer is speaking out saying that their game would not exist without PlayStation Studios. And that game is Rise of the Ronin, and the team is Team Ninja. So yeah, they're just putting out Rise of the Ronin on PC. The port seems like a mess. Like, I was hoping it would be a little bit easier to run than it runs on the PS5, but it turns out it's not necessarily because the game is doing anything that crazy with its open world or its combat or even its graphics. It's just that it's poorly optimized. So it's not one of those situations where it runs like crap on console and runs amazing on PC. It just runs kind of crappy on everything. And like, that sucks, you know, but it is a cool game. I put a few hours into it. I really enjoyed what I played of it. I was hoping it would run on the Steam Deck, but that doesn't look like it's going to be the case. Anyway, the leader of Team Ninja was doing an interview and he had this to say. We've received support in publishing and localization for the Neo series, but for Rise of the Ronin, in addition to that, PlayStation Studios was involved in almost the entire PS5 version development process. They shared valuable insights on various aspects, including accessibility and improving onboarding accuracy, which not only enhanced the value of the title, but also provided significant experience for Team Ninja. The project would not have started without the support of PlayStation Studios. We are extremely grateful to the PlayStation Studios team for lending their strength to this new challenge. On the surface, just feels like a feel-good story. It's nice to see developers coming out and saying good things about PlayStation, but I think this is a key difference between PlayStation, Xbox, and even Nintendo. Like, this game is not a first-party game. We've had that kind of figured out by Shuhei Yoshida. He has different sort of like levels of first-party, second-party, and third-party than other companies out there, but he no longer works at Sony. And just the fact that Team Ninja was able to publish this on PC without PlayStation's involvement, just like with Death Stranding, where 505 Games published it on PC, it shows it's not really a first-party game. So Sony really doesn't have to do anything to go out of their way and actually send their developers over, help them introduce the beginning of the game, help them get the open world stuff figured out, because it is a different game than Neo 2, and they definitely don't have to help them optimize for the PlayStation 5, but it is smart for them to do that, and I'm glad they did, because clearly they knew when they signed the deal for Rise of the Ronin to come out on console first and then PC later, they knew that's exactly what was going to happen. They were going to release it exclusively on PS5 first, then exactly a year later it could come to PC. That's a common deal in the industry. But at that point, I wouldn't say I wouldn't blame them for kind of saying, okay, we'll pay for your marketing, we'll pay for, like, you know, some of the development costs, but then once the game is out, you're kind of on your own. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. So to see the developer coming out and saying, yeah, PlayStation went the extra mile with us, it makes sense for us to join up with them with these game releases because they help so much, that's a great marketing tool for other third-party studios out there. Like, you could look at Xbox and say, oh, we'll get big exposure across the PC app, the Xbox app, and then, you know, we'll also have stuff like Play Anywhere or be included in Game Pass Ultimate. We might get a little bit of a marketing deal from their podcast or something like that. But if we go with PlayStation, they'll give us money, not only, which is important, they'll also market the game, but throughout the course of development, they'll help us integrate features of the PS5 like faster loading times, haptic feedback, adaptive trigger support. They'll even help us with the overall design of the game because it just helps Sony, right? Like, if the games come out and they do well and sell well and keep people engaged, that's a net win for Sony. It's an investment that's worth doing because it keeps people playing on their platform, which is exactly what they want these days. I just think it's cool to see them kind of doing outreach to studios they don't even own to help them with games that might be exclusive for a little bit on PlayStation, but are eventually going to come to PC. It's like the PlayStation difference at this point, how much they actually care about game quality and not just throwing money around, buying up a bunch of studios and letting them do the creative work and not really doing anything yourself to shepherd these studios into becoming bigger than they are. PlayStation's always had the best strategy, which is finding creative and talented talented studios, letting them make a game and release it exclusively on their platform. And if that game does well, then Sony buys the studio, gives them money and guidance to really blow the franchise up. It's happened countless times with everything from Uncharted all the way up to like Infamous, Sly Cooper, Ratchet and Clank, like all of the biggest PlayStation franchises that older people like me remember from when we were kids. They all started as third-party studios, and then Sony bought them and made the sequels even better. So while we don't have a ton of great games coming out left and right on PlayStation lately, I think this quality of PlayStation means that the games will be good when they do eventually come out, and it just goes to show you can't rush quality, and Sony is all about quality. But one aspect of their development process that may become a reality soon is the introduction of AI, and I don't really know how I feel about this. I know the like couth thing to do is to just shit all over AI, but like it's gonna happen regardless, so I'm at least interested to see what comes of it. I don't necessarily think I'll like it, but it is an interesting piece of tech. Like I like using ChatGPT to organize my day, or like I tell it what my workout plan is and it puts it in a list for me in like 2 seconds. Like that is a practical application. But this, what Sony is doing, I don't know if this is actually going to be a good thing in the end. So what they've done internally is take Aloy from Horizon Forbidden West, and they've injected her character with a large language model so that you can talk with her and she'll emulate the voice actress's voice in her responses. So she'll come up with responses on the fly. I can't show you the video because Sony's taking it down everywhere because this wasn't supposed to be released, but it is genuinely creepy to see Aloy just standing there talking to you. And the weird thing is, Aloy would not be the character that needs AI, right? Because it would be the NPCs in the world, right? Like the Karja guy with the mustache, the handlebars. Like he would use this large language model to respond to you in the game, and then you would use the microphone on your DualSense to talk to this NPC, and then you'd get language coded responses that actually fit in with the lore of the world you're playing. It wouldn't be Aloy talking to you, which leads me to believe that this truly is just an internal test showing off what can be done with AI. The reason I don't like this is because of the voice acting aspect. Obviously, like I'm super biased because I have a couple friends in the voice acting industry. Young Yaz, one of my friends, and then Ray, who does PSReady. He is a budding voice actor. He's had his stuff in commercials and things like that. If you introduce AI, it needs to pull a voice from somewhere. So then you'd see things like what we're seeing with this new game that came out where the voice actors are suing the developer because they brought them in, had them record for multiple characters, and then used AI to change the pitch and intonation of their voice. So they get a deal because they're paying one person to deliver a lot of lines, but then the voice actor gets screwed at the end of the day. And I don't really like that because they are providing to art. Like some jobs, you know, can be automated. Everything can be automated, I guess, at the end of the day. But I have like a weird sort of flippy floppiness with what jobs I'm okay with kind of being replaced by AI because they're like low paying minimum wage jobs to begin with anyway. And then when you see voice acting stuff like this, I'm like, I don't know. I don't want AI replacing that. But it's one of those situations where they're kind of forced to work on it. AI is becoming a real thing. It's not like NFTs or whatever, where it's just a fake thing that they're trying to force into the ecosystem. It is real, and it's going to go into game development. Like Strauss Zelnick, the guy who runs Take-Two Interactive, he was talking about how it's a tool. It's not like replacing artists, it's a tool for artists. And I think that is the right philosophy, but regardless, it is going to be a thing. So Sony's hand is kind of forced in the sense that they have to work on it in some fashion. But yeah, it's a weird future we're stepping into. I hope we don't see this anytime soon. That brings me to the end of the video. As always, guys, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.